Welcome back to My Classic Fords. Tonight I thought I'd do a video on this old truck I got. If you're new to the channel, it's a 72 Ford C800, an old cab over. I restored this truck about 12 years ago. As you see, it's starting to show its age again. This will be another project. If you follow along with the other videos, I have a 62 Mercury wagon. That's going in the garage first this fall. Waiting for a carburetor for it. Once we get that, we'll pull it in the garage. We'll start painting it. We're going to do a decent paint job. Not going to do a full restoration. So if you want to follow along with those videos, that would be great. I've had a lot of people ask me about this old truck. Just, how do you shift it? How do you drive it? It's got a 5-speed transmission, 391 gas engine with a 5-speed, and it has a 2-speed Ruckstell. So we'll go for a little drive. I'll try to do my best and explain to you, well, how I know how to shift it. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so don't mind the dirt and the dust in the old truck. This truck is in fact a dump truck. It does get used very frequently as a dump truck, and yes, it's hot in the summertime. That's why it's dirty in here. I do want to get it cleaned up sometime. I really enjoy this old truck and I want to keep it around for a long time. I do also want to take it in the garage and clean it up and paint it again, but that's for another day. So like I said, this is your 5-speed transmission. Low is in the bottom corner, so right now we are in neutral. These old trucks, they are a little bit odd. The linkage on them is kind of unique. It goes down to the floor. It's on a few different universal joints, and it has a big fork on the bottom here that shoves the shifter back and forth. It is awkward. It's a little awkward to use, but like anything, once you get used to it, it's not too bad. So if we were to take off, I would shove the clutch, bring my gear shift over to first. This is my Ruckstell button. It's pushed down, so that's the low side. There is instructions on the sun visor here on how to do it. I will try to do my best to explain it on how I've learned to do it. So my Ruckstell button is in the low side. I'm in first gear. I let out my clutch and I take off. Now this old truck, the only time you would really use low is if you're pulling away when you're full. I use it a lot when I pull out of my gravel pit. It's just much easier on the truck, much easier on the clutch to start in low gear. So now that we're in low, we push the throttle down. Once the throttle's pushed down, we start to accelerate. We pick up on the button, let off the throttle, back onto the throttle again. That shifts it into the high side on the Ruckstell. Now the next shift we would do, we would shove the clutch, push down on the Ruckstell button, push it up into second, let the clutch out. Now we're into second on the transmission, but in low side on the Ruckstell. Your next shift, push down on the accelerator, you pull up on the button, let off the accelerator, back onto the accelerator. Now you are in second in the high side. Again, you repeat the process. Button down, push the clutch, pull the lever back to third, let your foot off, back on the throttle. Pull your button up, off the throttle, on the throttle. Now you're in third, high side. Again, the same thing for fourth. Shove the clutch down, push the button down, up into fourth. It's a little bit awkward. We're sitting still. The linkage is tough to use. But we're now in fourth. Again, pick your button up. Now you're in fourth high. And this is where, when you're in fourth high, your next shift is just simply back to fifth. Because fifth on this truck is in fact direct. You do not use the low side of the Ruckstell on your direct gear. Now, The reason for that is this gives me 5 speeds in the transmission and 2 in the rear end. So yes, 5 and 2 is 10. We only use 9. And the reason for that is when you're in 4th and you make your shift from the low to the high, if I was to push down and on the low side of the Ruckstell and back into 5th, that ratio is almost identical. So you'd be making a shift that is totally irrelevant. You would go from whatever RPM, say 2,500, you might drop down to 2,450 for a second. So it's a shift that's not worth doing, essentially. So hopefully you can follow along with that. So we'll fire it up and go for a little drive. She did lose her prime from sitting here, obviously. It's been sitting here for a week or two. But it is a little cold, so we might have to give it a little choke. All right. So we'll let this warm up for a few minutes and we'll take it for a drive. All right. So I apologize if I'm a little shaky. I'm trying to do this with one hand. So we got our Ruckstell button down. We're in 1st gear. We take off. We get our speedometer up to about 1,500, 2,000. I picked up on the button, let off the throttle, and back on. So the next shift, the lever shift. And what I done there, I pushed my button down, I shoved the clutch, moved my lever. Now I'm back up, let off the gas, back onto the gas. Now we're into 2nd on the high side. So we'll do another lever shift. So down and back to 3rd. So now we're in 3rd, low side. Pick that up, let off the throttle, back on the throttle. And now we're into 3rd high. All right, so my camera died. Hopefully I got enough of the shifting in there for you to give you a little bit of insight on how these things work. Figured it was a good time to show it off at nighttime anyway. I put a few extra cab lights on it. I think it looks kind of neat. These old trucks, to me at least, are fun to play with. This one here actually is quite practical for me. I do use it frequently. Move a little dirt around and a little gravel and stuff. But all right, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.